Here's a reality. Let's bring it back to the United States. Women live longer than men. This is a surveillance break exclusive. Women make less than men. That's not funny. It's a toxic cocktail for all of America. Our failing retirement planning, we know that. For women, it's ever more important. The reality is women are running out of money as they migrate to 87, as men migrate to somewhere in the vicinity of 83. Sally Krawcheck has provided true leadership on this debate and analysis. She is chair of Ellevate Network. What is your to-do list to help all of America with this idea of what women need to do?
It's interesting because the retirement savings crisis is trillions wide. And it is so big and it's so ugly, we stopped actually talking about it. You don't hear the presidential candidates talking about it. If you put in an overlay that women live longer than men, right, it's actually a female crisis. It's actually a female crisis. And once you have that view, I mean, 85% of nursing home participants are women.
85%?
Yeah, 80 to 85% are women. Walk through a nursing home, and it's women all over the place.
What policy would you like to see from Washington?
Well, it's all about economic financial engagement of women. So if you start to look at it that way, a mandated paternal leave is no longer pesky women having pesky children. It's an investment in closing the retirement savings gap, because with a mandated paternal leave, you see that women stay in the workforce longer. The longer the leave they have, the more they come back.
I feel like this has really come home to my generation, sort of the Title IX generation. My wife works full-time, I work full-time, and really these don't feel like women's issues. They feel like family issues that we are both dealing with.
Yeah, with due respect. I mean, you gentlemen, you know, won't have the retirement savings crisis to worry about. You'll be dead. So we're left with it. And so how do you solve it? And keeping women in the workforce, and my old business, the wealth management business, helping women invest more, because women are underinvested versus men. There's a gender investing gap. Keeping them in the workforce, investing more, mandated parental leave, those are the solutions.
But to both of you, the Employment Retirement Income Securities Act of 1974 didn't see this coming. What policy prescription, what tax policy prescription can help men and pesky women, or maybe it's pesky men? I mean, the law is a disaster. Just starting with Orzag, who wants opt-in of 401k. What policy decision would you like to see from President Clinton or President Trump?
The first one that isn't being talked about is mandated parental leave. We are the only country in the world, except for Papua New Guinea, that doesn't have one. It really is. Now, I recently surveyed the women of Ellevate Network, the professional women of Ellevate Network. 95% of them believe we should have a mandated parental leave. You can't get 95% of professional women to agree on anything, and they agree that this can be an important way to close that gap.
I will sing in that choir. I can't say enough about mandated paternal leave. Barry Eichengreen, let's take that and move it back to Europe. Is it possible to look at what's going on and see not a euro crisis, but a retirement crisis? So much of this argument with Greece centered around the differentials between the way Estonia handles its pensioners and the way Greece handles its pensioners.
They have a retirement crisis. They have a demographic crisis, and they're a much older society than we are. They have a women's labor force participation crisis, and that participation rates remain lower than in the United States. So they have all the same issues that we do. They do grant more parental leave, but on all other dimensions, they have an even bigger problem.
Your textbook is authoritative, not your textbook, but your book, Europe After 1945, is absolutely authoritative on that cultural shift in Europe. What do you perceive as the new Europe in Greece, in Germany, and elsewhere, different from 5 years ago, let alone 40 years ago? What's the behavioral difference?
The Europeans are beginning to get their minds around the fact that they have to compete globally as well. They don't want Anglo-Saxon capitalism.
That's right. I was going to go. Jerry Muller at Catholic University. Is there going to be an Anglo-Saxon Europe?
And I think the answer is no. The alternatives of social market economy are simply too well established.
Do you agree with that, Professor Greeley?
I actually wanted to ask a slightly different question, which is when you look at, within Europe, one of the things that it explicitly is not is a transfer union. But it does seem like as you get movement of people within Europe, you have young people leaving places like Bulgaria, Greece, Spain, going to Berlin. They're not paying into their own retirement funds back home. So, I mean, does it need that kind of retirement transfer at the very least?
Well, it certainly needs a common pension system, and they're beginning to move in that direction. And it needs to recognize, I think, that migration in the American style creates problems in Europe as well as solving them.
Yeah.
Barry, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about gold. You have the ownership of the authoritative book on it, Golden Fetters, from years ago. Gold breaking down to new lows and new lows and new lows. Does that signal global disinflation and continued deflation?
I think it's indication of continued lowflation, and the fact that there are plenty of financial instruments out there that substitute for gold and dominate it.
You're going to state that gold has lost its luster?
Having said that for 20 or so years, I'll keep saying it until I'm right.
Very good. Barry Eichengreen, talking until he's right as well.